Hello everybody, I'm Tim Blair, and it's time for the Clay County Times-Democrat Weekly Web Update for the week of September 18th, 2013. Our weekly web updates are brought to you here on cctimesdemocrat.com with the good folks of Piggott State Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender, and serving this region since back in 1930. Well, this week's webcast originates from here on the north end of the turf of Parker Field in Piggott, the football field here adjacent to the elementary campus. And we're here today to talk a little bit about not only Mohawk football, but the fact that 35 years ago, this past Sunday, the first varsity game was played here at Parker Field. And of course, we've documented in the past the homeless Mohawks of the fall of '77 didn't have a football field, played what home games they did have at Kennett at Metz Cherry Stadium. Well, the following fall, the newly built Parker Field was opened. Now, the press box was actually a project of the Piggott Lions Club. They raised the money. They had like $100 a plate dinner back in June of that year to raise a lot of the money. Got a lot of donations and then volunteer labor. They completed the press box in time for the first home game. Now, as mentioned, the first home game as far as the varsity goes was played on the 15th of September as they took on Greene County Tech and took a 28-0 win over the Golden Eagles. For history's sake, the first varsity touchdown scored on this field was by sophomore running back Brent Simpson. And, of course, it was a off and on season. They had a lot of great talent on that team. And, again, they have the honor and distinction of being the first Mohawk team to play on this field, which has served them well for 35 seasons now as we go into our 36th year, and that will be tomorrow night with the varsity playing here against Palestine Wheatley in the home opener for the Mohawks this year, coming off that 1-point loss at Brooklyn last Friday night. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up in just a bit. Right now, we'd like to remind you in this week's edition of the Clay County Times-Democrat, you can get the full wrap-up on the recently completed Clay County Fair. We've got all the details on all the pageant winners and everything else. Also have the complete pageant page, a photo page there in this week's paper. Encourage you to pick that up. We also have all the details on the Native American Day, which was held Saturday up at the Matilda and Carl Pfeiffer Museum here in Piggott. They also benefited from the good weather on Saturday to draw a pretty good crowd, and we also went along with our cameras there. First of all, let's take a look at some of the scenes from the annual Clay County Fair as we visited both on Youth Day on Friday and also from the activities on Saturday as well.
Driving sidekick. We're going to go to the big tire stock. Big tire stock. The taller you get, the better you get.
Again, the weather turned off great on Friday, made for an excellent Friday and Saturday at the fair. All the events that they had were well attended. The hot tractors on Friday night, the demolition derby Saturday night, a good crowd turned out for the mud drags that were held Saturday in conjunction with the activities that were going on at the fair. So we congratulate the Fair Board and the Junior Fair Board for all the great work that they did preparing for this year's event, and I know that they're already looking forward to next year. And something else that will be coming up actually tomorrow night and Saturday night at the Clay County Fairgrounds is rodeo action. The Clay County Rodeo coming to town, 7:30 each night. They've got a lot of good talented stock and good talented cowboys and cowgirls that will be taking part in that, and we encourage everyone that can to make plans to get out and attend that if they possibly can. And again, that's coming up beginning at 7:30 each evening, Friday and Saturday, the 20th and 21st, at the Clay County Fairgrounds here in Piggott. We mentioned the Native American Day. It was the 10th annual event up at the Matilda and Carl Pfeiffer Museum. They held that on Saturday. They had the dancing, the Native American dances from Venture Crew 248 out of the Cape Girardeau area, Dub Lyerly, and he brought Dan Martin along this time. They were on hand to authenticate and check out and explain some of the artifacts brought in. Also had the Flint Nappers there as well. Our cameras visited, and let's take a look at some of the highlights of that. If you haven't had the chance to visit the Matilda and Carl Pfeiffer Museum here in Piggott, it's a great place, especially if you're a bit of a rock hound like I am. They've got the Native American artifact collection, most of those purchased from the Laws Cargill collection that he picked up all across this region. They've got some really nice items, but they have a world-class collection of gems and minerals and crystals. They've got some very knowledgeable people that can tell you about them and give you a little bit of the history and so forth. It's very interesting. If you've never visited the museum, you need to make plans to try to do that. It's adjacent to the Hemingway Pfeiffer Museum, and between the two of them, there's something to offer for just about everyone. We encourage everybody to stop by and check those out when they have the chance. Also in this week's edition of the Clay County Times-Democrat, you can get all the details on the Piggott School Board meeting, the public meeting that was held by the school board, also an update on the Quorum Court meeting. That's all can be found in this week's edition, along with the wrap-ups on the fair, the Native American Day, and a preview of the rodeo, which is coming up as well. Well, we mentioned the football season is underway. Our cameras did make the trip to Brooklyn. We got just a couple of highlights of the Mohawks' one-point loss to the Bearcats last Friday night on that last-minute play, and take a couple of looks at that now. Now, the Junior Mohawks will actually continue their season. They traveled to Westside last Thursday night, lost a 30-6 contest to the Junior Warriors down there, 4A school, but the very young Junior Mohawks will continue their season. Tonight, they'll be on the road at Manila. They'll be opening the home portion of their season next Thursday evening with the 7th grade team playing at 5:30. The junior high team game time is at 7 p.m. next Thursday here at Parker Field, as they'll be taking on the Junior Bulldogs from Earl. Also in sports this week, in this week's edition of the Clay County Times-Democrat, Ryan Rogers has information and a full report on the Rector Pee-wees doubleheader that they played down at the field to Marion Field and Rector last weekend. You can get the details and some photos on that in this week's edition. Also have a little story on Tanner Murray, the former Mohawk standout has been invited to join the Arkansas State University baseball squad. And it's a great story. Good luck to Tanner. And we've got the details in this week's edition as well, and more. We encourage you to pick up a copy of the print edition of the Clay County Times-Democrat today. Now, coming up in next week's edition, we'll have a wrap-up on the rodeo and some other activities that are going on around the region. And, of course, all the usual great information and features that we have for you as well. And we encourage you to pick up a copy. They're available on newsstands around the region. Also encourage you to pick up a copy of the Delta Voice. It's available from way down around Marktree all the way up to the Chaffee and Bloomfield area here in northeast Arkansas, southeast Missouri. Got a lot of great information, features, ads, and so forth. They're absolutely free. They're available for you to pick up. We encourage you to pick up a copy of the Delta Voice today. Now, the latest edition of the Delta Crossroads should be out by the time anybody sees this. They were printed yesterday. We're getting those picked up and starting to distribute those around the area. A lot of great stories in that, including a feature on the Inn at Piggott, which is the new bed and breakfast, or rather the inn that is in the former downtown inn location in the former Piggott State Bank building here in Piggott. We've got a feature story on that in the Delta Crossroads and a lot of other good stories as well. And you can pick up a copy of that. It's absolutely free. You can pick one up at either one of the paper offices or other locations around the region. Well, with that, we wrap up another edition of the Clay County Times-Democrat Weekly Web Update, brought to you here on cctimesdemocrat.com by the good folks of Piggott State Bank. And until next week, for all of us, I'm Tim Blair reporting.